All right, we'll move on. We've got a city council work session right now on social media policy and training. Alan Abramovitz, good evening, sir.
Yes, thank you. Well, good evening to everyone. And if you recall, at the October 5th City Council meeting, the social media policy revision was approved with the understanding that we would have training for the appropriate people on that policy. So that's what we are here to do this evening. And Jason Mcmahon, who is a risk management advisor with MPR, has agreed to help us with this training. He has prepared a presentation, and he will be your trainer tonight.
Great.
So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason.
Evening, Jason.
Good evening. And I'm going to take this off because I was told we were recording it, and it'll probably come off clearer that way. And y'all are kind of far enough away. So thank you. Thanks for having me. Hey, there it goes. All right, so your social media policy, obviously you guys are familiar with it because you approved it, but I think learning some of the nuances and some best practices and that sort of thing can probably help get a long way to keep you doing things with the intent of the policy. And so I was the risk manager that was born in the 70s, so I have experience with social media. My older counterparts don't have a lot of it, so they asked me if I would do this training for y'all tonight. I didn't do that one. So Midwest Public Risk, if you're not familiar, we're the risk pool that you all are a member of for your property and liability coverage, along with about 150-ish entities in Missouri and Kansas for P&L. We also do work comp and employee benefits. And so, our goal is to keep you guys from getting in trouble, as well as the rest of the members. We prefer to use your resources for risk mitigation than paying for claims. So trainings like this are important to us, and we're really excited that you have invited me in here to do this for you. So, or at least walk you through it, answer any questions, or help answer any questions that we might have for the social media. All right, it's trying. You got it? All right. So, I always like to start things off with a little funny. A lot of times when I'm doing training with people, it's a regular old, joke that I would tell one of my children. But since we're doing social media, I thought a meme would be more appropriate. So as you can see, Abraham Lincoln, people believe anything that they read on the internet. If you don't know what a meme is, this might not pertain that much to you, this training. No, I'm just kidding. But no, there's a lot of funny stuff out there. This is just one I thought was appropriate. Go ahead. So, your social media policy, I've kind of taken a few pieces of it that we can talk about. Obviously, the purpose of this is just to give you guidance on how to act online. And it goes to the whole city for employees, elected, appointed officials, how the city will actually handle their own social media sites and everything. It's kind of all encompassing. And this just kind of, the purpose of it is point number one. So then we've got definitions. Social media is basically it's various forms of discussion that just are between people. In social network, it just happens to be that these are electronic. They're online. They're phones. There's all sorts of different ways that social media is being used. Technically, things that you probably wouldn't have think of that fall under that category. A lot of times, the training like this I did years ago for a group of court administrators, and at that time it wasn't how to use social media or a policy, it's risks of it. It was kind of a new cutting edge thing and people didn't know a lot, and there are serious pitfalls that aren't a policy thing. They're dangers from social media and websites and things like that. And so I did a training and I asked them, how many people aren't on social media? And then there were like 100 people in the audience, probably 75% of them all raised their hand. I'm not on any social media. I don't have to worry about this. So I started asking, about Facebook and some of these other ones, and a few hands went down and a few hands went down. And then, I put a graphic up. You can go to the next page. And this was about 8 or 9 years ago. And those are all, I know it's really hard to read in that little slide, but these are all different types of social medias that are out there. Then when I asked the group about LinkedIn and I asked the group about Pinterest, I think 90% of the hands went down. People didn't realize that doing things like that, searching, how to fix your car on YouTube is technically, that's a social network. And so, being mindful of that and HOAs that have email chats and all these different ways are ways that you can participate in social networking. So it's a big encompassing, big deal that we're worried about. All right. So then I kind of skipped over the employees and went straight to the elected officials, which I put the whole thing on there because I do think it's important, and I wanted you to have it kind of in writing in front of you as you've got this. I'm not going to read it, but this is you guys. This is what pertains to you, and this is kind of what we're going to focus on. Okay. So A and B, I kind of lumped together. Account names obviously should not be tied to the city. Don't put Steve, the mayor, as your title for those. Now, what you can do is to be, fully transparent is in the description. If you want to put what you do, you can put it in there that I do serve as the mayor. You can put these things in so that people know that. But what you probably need to put is a disclaimer that, whatever you post, whatever you share, whatever you like, whatever you do is your opinion only, and it's not necessarily the opinion of the city. Just so that's clear and concise.
So you don't recommend us having a separate page for like I have Rich Mountain Gardner City Councilman that's not a part of my personal page? That way it's only my opinion and not that's what I'm asking. I want to make sure that's right.
And I'm looking for some help, some guidance.
So my Facebook page, I have my personal page, obviously, which we're all familiar with, and then I have my Rich Melton Gardner City Councilman page, which is where I use that to put anything out that's city related. Okay. So he is saying that we shouldn't have that, I guess, and should have our personal page that says I'm a city councilman, but it's my thing. I don't like that on my personal page per se.
Well, yeah, the position I've always taken is, and I think what our policy says, I'd have to pull it up, is, if you're holding yourself out as a representative of the city and you're taking a position as a representative of the city, that's what our policy cautions against.
Right.
If you're expressing your own personal opinion on your own personal page, you have First Amendment rights just like everybody else.
So that kind of goes against your advice, though.
I'm just going by what says here. I wasn't part of creating, wasn't part of any of those discussions. I'm going what I've got black and white here that says it should be separate. Calling it the, Rich council member is just a name, I think.
Yeah, that's the name of the page.
It is the name of the page.
It seems like if you only have one page, that your main account, and you were mixing things, that would be a lot worse than having two separate. Having a separate page that makes it clear and distinct.
I would agree.
I'd just like to say one thing here I don't know if you have the policy there, but on page 3 of the policy, it says employees, appointed officials, or elected officials shall not initiate or participate in discussions related to policy creation or formation on social media sites. So what this is talking about, and it says at the top, City of Gardner's social networking content. So you shouldn't be doing that on the City of Gardner
Right,
webpage, those kinds of
Right.
things.
yeah, that's,
That's what this is speaking to.
okay.
So
Yeah.
my mayor's page, so I have a mayor's page and I have my personal page. I make it clear on my personal page is my own personal opinion and nobody else's. On my mayor's page, I basically use that to disseminate information that, is available either through the city
Right.
website or through, other outlets that's pertaining to the city and.
Stuff that Nika
citizens.
puts out.
A lot of it is, most of it's the stuff
Yeah,
that.
right.
Right, just sharing the same
Exactly,
information.
but it's not something that I'd be using to establish a policy position on. That's not something that I use for my mayor's page for.
I think in the past where there's been issues is when there's been discussions between people on their personal page related to policies and things like that with the city. I think that's where we get into trouble sometimes.
Correct.
Well,
And if I can just make one suggestion, if you're gonna have your page, I think it'd be okay if you just put a disclaimer, if you're on your council member page, just to say that these are my opinions or these are my views, So I think you'd be safe there if you were going to maintain your pages.
This is not an official page of the city of Gardner. This is a page that I'm using in my capacity, but it's not administered or run by the city.
Yeah, and that's actually what Danica said. is
Some
actually
type of description that would be helpful as well.
Yep. Okay.
Did you have something?
no, it's fine.
Okay. And I mean, the other piece would probably be not to discuss, obviously, city policy and get in direct dialogue with things that should take place in the open forum like here.
That's kind of
I
tough.
would disagree with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
If
Well-
you're on your personal page and you're mixing,
Well,
sure.
I guess policy that's getting ready to, I mean,
But if you're on your
It's-
your city council page, right, and you're saying that you're not on the city's page, you're not on the city of Gardner page, so it's clear that it's my page, Rich's page, Steve's page, whoever's page. That's no different than having a phone call or email or anything else with any of your constituents.
And yet at
So-
the same,
As
and
long
yet at
as
the
everybody
same,
else isn't chiming
and
in.
yet
Right,
at the
as
same
long as we don't
time-
have a serial meeting. going
right,
on.
and that's,
That's
I
the
guess that's
problem.
kind of what I was
That's the
talking
problem.
about, but
Right, we don't get
In
on
my
each other's
head.
pages because they're boring.
Well, and sometimes you're directly called out on
Right.
Facebook, like,
Yes.
Mayor Steve, will you respond to this by someone else?
And I can't, and
Sure.
I know that because I know Coma. So,
Well, you can't
Gotta
for
be-
public knowledge and it's already been out.
Yeah,
not certain things that were done with that.
I'm talking about if it's already out here.
Yeah,
something we already talked about and voted on.
Mhm.
It's, you can answer for it.
yes, that's true.
Awesome, thanks.
We're
just, I mean, what, one page in? Look at that.
Right, how about that?
How much time do we allow? An hour?
Well, let him do his presentation, Rich, and,
We've got, the next thing is honesty, obviously, and especially if you got the two, and, probably more importantly, the ones that you're talking about, being the council member, not sharing any, non-public information, and keeping those things where they need to be for your, your meetings so that you're COMA compliant and those sort of things. Next, the mistakes, liabilities, claims against the city. If you do on any of your sites, make a mistake, they happen, is corrected as quickly as possible. In the policy, it says that, to contact the city's public information officer to let them know too, just in case, something needs to be cleaned up,
She's
cleared
got
up.
us on speed dial. Sometimes.
They're probably monitoring, so they'll be the ones to let you know. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
oh, no, she does.
Okay.
She's good about it.
And then using personal technology to communicate city business issues, which is a fairly large one, or it can be, just from the regard that if you're using city technology, even doing your personal stuff, and someone does an open records request, and they can, or that I've got that one backwards. No, I did got it right. The other one is using the city's technology and doing something inappropriate. But they could, want to look at your computer. They could want to look at your phone. And if there is obviously evidence that you have done, city business with your personal, that is something that you would have to adhere to. So trying to keep those separate. When you're having these discussions, try to add value, stay focused. You're not, we always try to say, don't add, fuel to the fire, so to speak, when people get on there and get irate. When you get called out like you do, and I'm sure that you do, I spent a few years as public works director, so I understand that one. Take a big deep breath, think about it for a while before you type it out. Or, one of the things that I like to do when I'm really irritated with somebody is type out that response and then hit delete, before I send it, before I post it, before I print it, make sure and do that. It really can help, recently. So I'm on a site next door. I don't know if you guys have that out, in neighborhoods here in Gardner. I live in Lee Summit, and some of the neighborhoods have that. And I saw in that somebody, complaining about some upgrades that had done at a park. And they lit up certain areas in the parking lot, but they didn't fix some of the lights on an old trail. And basically because of case law that's come down, it was some of these things. I got on there because I have a little experience in this and said, this is what I would recommend to one of my members that was doing a new park and they had this sort of thing. Well, then what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And I finally had to say, look, I was just answering a question that I had a little bit of information about. If you've got, real serious concerns, take them to the Parks Department. They're the ones that, can handle this. It's, just at some point you got to step back. You got to guide them to the department that can answer the questions for them. And like I said, just, add value to the discussions, not just trying to take them over. Here's the coma, mind the law, the policies, and I'm no coma expert. You probably got one of those, so if you've got questions about that. But making sure that your presence online doesn't violate that, and that's, having meetings basically, and you've already said that you don't have meetings with one another online, but making sure those discussions between y'all don't take place somewhere other than where they're supposed to. Be aware of trademark, copyright, patent stuff. You don't want to share anything out like that could get you in trouble. And the confidential, I know we kind of said it, but making sure you're not sharing any type of information like that before it becomes public knowledge, or about city employees that may never become public knowledge. Some of those things, HR type things that stay sealed forever. Making sure we're not, sharing that kind of information. The city-owned equipment, that's the one, make sure if you are using the city's equipment for anything online, you have been asked or you do have permission to do something from the social media, from the city, but making sure that you're not, violating the city's policies on discrimination, on harassment, pornography, libelous or otherwise defamatory content. We want to make sure and stay away from any of that. And then, it actually has in the policy that if the city comes to you and says, stop, you need to stop. I'm sure that then there'll be a discussion on what needs to be stopped, what you need to do going forward, but being mindful that if you're asked to stop, stop, think about what we're doing, and let's figure that out and move forward. Campaigning is not allowed on any city site. Obviously on your personal, you can do that. And if you get contacted by any media on any of your sites about anything that's going on, to refer them to the public information officer. You got a question?
Oh, no.
Okay. Well,
I'm
like
very
you
familiar with all this.
Oh.
This is like my daily adventure right here. Danika's constantly hovering.
Okay.
She does a great job keeping me out of trouble.
That's kind of the policy itself for what it's got, things to remember. is your conduct online? It's there. I don't know how many people are looking at it, but there are people that are doing it. They're reading it, whether it's your personal, your personal council person, personal mayor. I mean, people are going to look at that. And so, the question that you've got to ask is, would you say it in an open meeting, what you're putting out there? We always like to say, would you say it in front of your kids? Would you say it in front of your mother? And those are, sometimes those aren't the highest of bars, depending on your kids and your mother. So, when we used to do training years ago, when the internet was kind of a new thing still, and social media was a new thing still, and people started text messaging, and they were sending messages from their phones and not really thinking about it. And we used to say, think about, if somebody got an open records request for what you just sent, and they put it on a billboard somewhere in your city, with your name that you sent it, how would you feel about that? And in the world that we have today with social media, they do it themselves. They put the crazy stuff out there. I mean, I don't know if you all remember this, but
Yes.
That was right before the Royals came back, and so did the Toronto Blue Jays. So the governor of Texas, he deleted this minutes later after both of the teams lost, but it's still out there. You still find it every day, and people put crazier stuff. I mean, there's not an NFL draft that goes on that some first-round talent has some 10-year-old tweets that they put out there that were homophobic or discriminatory or you name it, that they've tried to delete, they tried to scrub, but somebody found it, and those things come out. So, some of these harmless things that we put out there, we think about that are harmless, they're no big deal. There's no telling when those might come back. And I don't think, you don't want them attached to you. The city certainly doesn't want it attached to them. So be mindful when you're putting that stuff out. It was kind of a short policy. I mean, there's good questions, but I'll take any other questions. I mean, I think this is the room to ask them in before anybody gets into trouble. I mean, the biggest problem that when I say the why, the biggest fear that we would have is that you do something that violates some of these things, and not just the policies, but if you violate the law and you're doing it on your own outside of your scope of service, and somebody comes after you for that, and there might not be coverage, and that could be problematic for everyone. It would get, that gets ugly when everyone starts pointing at everyone else. So, being mindful, having a positive, effect on your community, sharing the information that needs to be shared, disseminating the information that comes to you that needs to be disseminated. Because sometimes I think people don't have an idea that when they share their complaints that they're going to be heard by somebody. So hopefully if you've got that presence and they share their complaints, you get them to the proper people, and hopefully you get to take care of them, because that's why you are all here. I'll take questions, or not. I mean, I'm good either way.
Well, I guess I was thinking of something here regarding, we may say something in our personal pages that we think is innocuous, totally innocuous. There are a lot of people out there, especially when you're in the public eye, regardless of whether or not you're on your personal page or whether you're on your page in your official capacity within, for your personal page as a city councilman or as a mayor or whatever, that you say something, and there are people out there that are looking for an opportunity to create an issue. And, what is it that they always say? It's not really necessarily whether or not you think something is offensive, it's whether somebody else is going to construe it as being offensive. How do you walk that line without completely stifling speech completely?
Well,
Seems like a philosophical question.
It does,
It is a philosophical
and
question. It's more of a rhetorical question, but
and from my standpoint, NPR's probably standpoint, and probably the city is, as long as you have everything set that it's your account, it's your thoughts, it's your feelings, it's only you, and you're not tagging the city and saying this is what we think, you're on your own with that. Now it becomes a problem when, well, we think this, and you share it out. But if it's you, that you're on your own with that one, and hopefully it doesn't get tied to the city. I mean, and that's really what this is about, is making sure that you don't have those strings attached from your personal to the city, and making sure that the public understands that those are not the same. And I say that, and I don't know the rest of your personnel policy. Now, if your personnel policy has different rules that say, you can't do things that are X, Y, Z, just because you're doing them online, it'd be the same as you doing them here with a group of people. And so, just because it's online doesn't mean that it's not happening. So anything that you would do in person that would cause some sort of an issue is going to cause the same issue if it's online. It's not a shield, for sure.
Can I also add something from a public relations standpoint?
Please.
I think it's very important for you guys to remember that although you may say this is my personal page, people have a hard time separating you from your title or your role. So it's important that you always remember, I'm not telling you to put the city first, but always keep the city in mind. We want to make sure that our brand is still respected and that we put our best foot forward, because we want to make Gardner look good. And because you are tied to the city, you kind of always wear that banner. So we ask from a public relations standpoint that you do your best to put your best foot forward.
All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, we'll go on ahead and close the work session. Thank you. Yes, Alan.
On the diet,
Yes.
there should be a sheet of paper that acknowledges that you received the training. Would you guys be willing to sign it?
I think all of us have
signed it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
I can
Thank
follow
you,
some
Jason.
direction.
And we will reconvene at 7 p.m. for the regular council meeting. Thank you.
Thanks.